Hello and welcome everyone to the Amateur Commentator. This is Somit here and I have with me Anshul. Hi Anshul.
Awesome.
So today we'll be talking about the Formula One Grand Prix at Melbourne, Albert Park, Melbourne. Great race for Ferrari. Not that great for Max Verstappen, but Sergio Perez did finish on second. It took place some 4-5 kilometers away from Saint Juan's Memorial. It was kind of the first live event that the Aussie crowd were allowed to get into after that horrific pandemic that has been there in the strict lockdown that was imposed across Australia, especially in Melbourne and around that area. We saw 4.2 lakh spectator for this year's Australian Grand Prix. That's kind of the highest viewership for a live event, perhaps in Australia and possibly elsewhere as well. And they were able to see a masterclass of a race from Charles Leclerc, where he topped the qualifying. He led from the first lap, led all throughout the 58 lap. On the face of it, it may seem like not that interesting a race, but it was. It was quite an interesting race. Although Leclerc did set the pace, the others were there as well. So let's start with an overview of the race, how the race went. So Anshul, can you please give us an overview of the race and how you felt the race turned out? Sorry.
Sure. Thanks, Amit. Firstly, the way you started in terms of 420,000 spectators. Like I think Austin last year was something which came close to that, but this was quite an event for the Australian crowd, especially with all the recent events about Shane and that was quite heartening to see all the people turn out, also supporting their local hero. But let's get into the race. As you rightly pointed out, it was a good race for Leclerc, not so great for Sainz. Even in the qualifying, he was a bit unlucky, and even the race was not good out. It did not turn out well for him. But yes, I think Leclerc is a force to reckon with for this season. Reliability issues for Red Bull, again, it was visible. Yes, during the restart of the race, after Vettel crashed out, there was a fraction of time, probably for half a lap. C might be able to catch Leclerc, but by the time DRS was enabled after the safety car, I think Leclerc was way ahead, and there was no chance Verstappen would have been able to catch him. But saying that, Sergio Perez had a very good race. Yes, Russell was a bit lucky where he was able to, make the pit stop during a yellow flag, and that allowed him to go ahead of Sergio Perez. But it was entire deja vu for Mercedes. Last season they were able to easily take over at some instances, Sergio Perez or Red Bull for that matter in some circuits. But Perez overtook not just Hamilton but Russell as well, and I think for Hamilton he was able to overtake him without the help of DRS as well. So that was easily visible. The pace difference between Ferrari, Red Bull, and the rest of the circuit. But overall, I think it was a good race for Mercedes in terms of the points they were able to capture. It would have been interesting to see, as we also spoke about earlier, that if Hamilton would have been, a much closer to Russell, what would have been the team orders? Because we saw Russell was not quite happy when he was asked to let Perez, go off. So that would have been interesting, and I'm sure at some point of time the season we will be able to see that. Lance Stroll and Vettel, I'm not sure if it's just the new cars that is hampering, or it's a lack of practice for Vettel. But they are not looking the same team what we saw from them last year or probably a season before that when they were Racing Point as well. So I'm a bit concerned for Aston Martin. But saying that, I think Lance Stroll drove well. Yes, there were a few issues where he also coped up with some of the penalties. But he looks a very good driver. It's just that I don't think so. He has a very good car with him right now. Bottas scored another point, and that would be very important for Alfa Romeo going down the line in terms of when they'll be fighting for the constructor championship. Overall, yeah, I think apart from Sainz, probably Alonso was one other driver who was a bit unlucky. not just from the qualifying scenario, but also from the tire strategy point of view. Uh, along with Albon and some others who were running, the hard tire from starting. I think the medium tires did not do justice to the car, or it may not have been, warmed up sufficiently enough to do the final laps, which would have allowed him to finish probably a bit higher. But the masterclass came from Alex Albon. I think no one would have expected Williams to score that point, but the strategy in terms of pitting at the last lap, and I'm not sure if that is something which they would have planned right from the starting of the race, but eventually it turned out very well for Williams. Not just Albon finishing with the point, but for a change, Latifi not crashing.
Yeah, that was kind of the highlight for me as well. Latifi not crashing out and not finishing last as well. But let's just take this what happened with Alex Albon a bit further, and also with the hard tires, because there was a point of time where Fernando Alonso was fourth, and his pace looked up there. I mean, it looked like he was someone who could finish in top five. He had that pace. Even during qualifying, it happened that he had the pace and he crashed out. Otherwise, he had done two good sectors at that point of time. I just have a hypothetical. I don't know. I mean, what would Williams did get 1 point at the end. Albon did finish 10th, and he was there. But he pitted it on the 57th lap. Would it have been nicer? In fact, if he would have finished the race, he would have obviously got the penalty. He would have not got the point. But they could have. It could have been a signal of intent. It could have shown that, well, we do have a good car. Was that worth signaling, or do you think that Albon did the right thing? He had to pit. He pitted. He finished in 10th, which is not a bad result for Williams at this point of time.
See, I get what you're trying to say, but even the signal of intent, I think they were still able to show it with a single point scoring at 10. Why that was important, to pit there, because not just from the penalty point of view, but that would have given a lot of confidence for the overall team. That yes, even though this is not the best of the car in the circuit, we are still able to score points. So that is something which will be important for them going ahead, because I'm not sure Latifi is having the best of the seasons. He has been unlucky, yes, but there have been instances where he could have done things differently. But with Alex Albon, they have a driver who knows how to be in the top, 3, 4 at least. He has the experience from the Red Bull. So that will be very important going ahead. I'm not sure which all circuits will actually suit the car which Williams has currently, and how far will they be able to develop going ahead into the season. But I think all the points which you talked about, still by spitting, they were able to, be on the right side of the regulations and still show that intent in terms of that, we are here, although we do not have the best car. Coming back to the point of Alpine, we talked about Alonso. I think even in the last season, we saw that Alpine is not the best of the car or not the fastest of the car across all the circuits. But there are few circuits which absolutely suits, this Renault engine. I think Australian Grand Prix was one of those. It's just that the reliability point of view from Alonso's car, I'm not sure we are 100% there. Even we saw in the first race as well of the season. So although those issues are not there, at least visibly in the car which Ocon is driving, but Alonso is clearly much faster in the circuit as comparison to Ocon. It's just that I still feel they are also having the similar reliability issues both Red Bull and AlphaTauri are facing. If they will be able to rectify those things, there will be few circuits in the season where Alpine will be very difficult contender to beat.
Yeah. I mean, Ocon finishing 7th is actually a testament to the fact that they do have a good car. There is space there.
Yeah.
And while Alonso is much faster, or has been much faster than Ocon, Ocon has also drove quite reliably throughout this Formula 1 season as well. Talking about AlphaTauri, you spoke about reliability issues. Again, not a great race. Gasly finishing 9th, Tsunoda 15th. There were hopes from AlphaTauri this time around as well. Last year they had a fairly decent season. Tsunoda was a rookie at that point of time, but somehow it does feel like they are off pace. There are reliability issues, we know, with the engine. what is going to be their season like? Because it doesn't seem like they would be doing much apart from like Gasly scoring a point here and there. Tsunoda has
Yeah.
been unlucky to a certain extent in some races, and not that great as well, because he has been making some mistakes, rookie mistakes, which are not expected of him. So how do you see Tori's season panning out this time?
See, when we are talking about, say, 2021, the gap between, at least in terms of the performance and the results in the initial part of the season, it was not significant as comparison to Red Bull for AlphaTauri. But at least in the initial few races here in this season, that is something which is missing. We are able to see, likes of Alfa Romeo, Alpine, and Haas being much more competitive and giving the run for money for likes of Mercedes and McLaren. But AlphaTauri is missing there. Yes, Gasly, as you pointed out, will score a few points here and there, but I'm not sure even Gasly is able to, give the best what he has. Whether that is from his performance point of view, that is from the car point of view, I think it's a bit early to say that, because at the end, Red Bull and AlphaTauri, they are running the same power unit. So I would not be surprised if, going ahead in the season, they'll be much more closer. That is something which I would expect. But I don't think so. The entire issue right now with AlphaTauri is just the reliability part. I feel, Gasly and Tsunoda have not had a best of start for the season, and they should be able to close down the gap between their sister concern and the other teams as well.
Yeah, talking about closing down the gap, we actually the most interesting part which I felt about this Australian Grand Prix, yes, Charles Leclerc drove kind of a solitary race where he was all alone after Max Verstappen crashed out. It was all Leclerc at the top position, but the battle in the middle for the points was quite interesting. We had Bottas, we had Gasly, we had Stroll, Albon was there. I mean, Albon was almost. He was just after Ricciardo in 7th position for most of the race with that hard tire, and then he had to pit and he went out. But Schumacher was there, Magnussen was there, Tsunoda was there, and this whole line, there was a whole line of like 6, 7, 8 cars fighting for those last few points. And perhaps that was the most interesting aspect of this race for me. There was a moment where Fernando Alonso was extremely angry. I think at Stroll, was it at Stroll for not overtaking Gasly? I don't exactly recall, but it so happened. So that was interesting. Let's just talk about both the McLarens. You did talk about it in the overview as well. First of all, the way Perez overtook Hamilton, it was not just a masterclass in driving, especially when you are doing that to a 7-time world champion, but it also kind of showed the gap that is there between Mercedes and between the Red Bull. So it was not a DRS zone, and Perez drove absolutely perfectly to get ahead of Hamilton, and then he closed the gap on Russell and then overtook him as well. So one that I would like to know from you is, will Mercedes be able to make a comeback and give tough fight to Ferrari and Red Bull in this subsequent races? And the second one is, what is going to happen if it's going to get close between Russell and Hamilton? Because this time around, I felt that Russell had enough pace. Hamilton was a bit off. If Hamilton would have been faster for most of the race, I am not sure what the orders would have been and whether Russell would have agreed to it or not. Because that's an interesting race that will go around. And since this is not Mercedes are not performing that well right now, so there may be some there isn't that much issue. But if the car starts performing well, I could see some issues between Russell and Hamilton, as much as Russell is a fanboy of Hamilton. So what are your views on Mercedes? Sorry.
See, before that, there are a couple of things when we are talking about all these drivers. You spoke about Sergio Perez. Now, I'll include Russell here as well. Now, Russell is very young. And, when you have a younger driver, they are much more keen to, adapt to change. Sergio Perez is a very good student. He has, been with different teams. And this is the second season with Red Bull for him. And he has adapted to the car much better as comparison to Verstappen. The problem with Hamilton is he has been in the similar setup for last 7 years, 7, 8 years. This year change is significant as compared to any other changes which we have in the last 7 to 8 years. I think that's one place where Hamilton is struggling a bit, to cope up with all the changes, and he was also not part of the initial phase of the testing. So I think yes, Hamilton will get there where he'll be able to match or even better the speed of what Russell is doing. But I don't see the gap between Red Bull and Mercedes to reduce, at least in the before the summer break what we have for the season. That would be very difficult for Mercedes, and I'm even not sure whether that they'll be able to pull that off during the latter part of the season. It will be still some time when Mercedes are able to catch up to the pace of Red Bull, because let's be honest, even at the straight line speeds, even Ferrari are not as close to Red Bull. Leave aside Mercedes. So that is something where other teams will have to do the catch up. Yes, going ahead, Mercedes will perform better. But from the reliability point of view, they are much better as compared to the Red Bull.
Yeah, I think I agree with you on that one. Let's just take this forward. Let's before we come to Perez performance and Leclerc's performance, let's talk about the three retirement that happened. One was Sainz in the second lap itself, where he crashed out, and I think Zhau was lucky not to hit him and crash out as well. The second was Sebastian Vettel in the 25th, 24th, 25th lap, and then Verstappen's car catching fire in the 39th lap. All three were different kind of retirements. Sainz, I think, has to be. I mean, the fact that he's driving such a good car and he has been so unlucky with especially in Australia with the qualifying and then yeah. But do you think Vettel came to the race a bit unprepared? Maybe he should have waited for Imola to come back. Did you feel that Vettel was somehow unprepared for the race? Because that happened in the qualifying as well, in free practice as well, and it was bound to happen. It looked like it was a crash waiting to happen. He was not going to finish the race, or there was a feeling of that. And also with Max's car, because there's a second retirement in 3 races. If this keeps on happening, then it could be an issue going forward.
I agree on the Vettel part. He was a bit unprepared. He did not have a lot of track time even in the first 2 races where he was out due to COVID, and even during the practice session as well, with all the issues in the car. Saying that, I think it would have been difficult for Hülkenberg as well, because although he was racing for them in the first 2 races, but he also did not have a lot of time, at least in this particular circuit. So I think it would have been equally challenging whether it would have been Hülkenberg or Vettel, because if the car was not there on the track during the free practice. That is an important issue, because this is a new layout. A lot of the corners have been reshaped. That's why it was important to get the free practice track time, and both of the drivers didn't have that. So yes, he was unprepared, but I'm not sure if Hülkenberg would have been able to do much better or a different job there. Talking about Sainz, I still believe Ferrari and Mercedes have been lucky, at least in the initial part of the season. From the standings, yes, Ferrari has a very good car, and it's not just the disqualification or DNF for Red Bulls, but they have not been able to capitalize, especially here when we talk about Sainz crashing out. They would have loved to score another podium with Sainz, because he definitely had the pace. It would have been a difficult scenario, overtaking Perez since he was coming from back of the grid. But going ahead in the season, I'm not sure, because over a period of time, the luck runs out at some point of time. And as long as you have the luck on your side, I think Ferrari and Mercedes needs to capitalize that. Because one thing we are sure from the Red Bull side is they have the pace and they have the car to, win the championship. It's just the reliability part. If they are able to fix that within the next few races, they'll be a difficult force to reckon with. Because last year, yes, Verstappen was way ahead of the pack, and he was competing with, Lewis Hamilton. But this time, Perez is very close to Verstappen. And when you have 2 drivers with a very top speed car, it will be very difficult for Ferrari if both the cars of Red Bull are able to finish all the races.
Well, yeah, it could be, but I think Ferrari does look like a much more reliable car. In fact, That was the reason why I said that Sainz has been unlucky, because he has finished second in one, third in the other, and then did not qualify, did not finish this race. And he it looks like he could have done better in both the races. In the first race, he finished second, despite the fact that he was not at all comfortable with the car throughout
Yeah.
free practice, throughout the qualifying and the race as well. So I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure whether Ferrari have been lucky or not. I think Sainz has been absolutely unlucky. And even though there is a possibility that Red Bull could improve on the reliability issue, which still feels difficult, because out of the out of the three races, they have not finished three times. There have been DNF. So
Yeah.
it's something that they need to look into seriously. There have been minor incidences where Max has locked up his car, or the clutch is not working, or something like that as well. So yeah, saying that if they
See,
get their
why
act,
why I said that you talked about minor incidences. If they're able to fix this, I'll make the
that's what
same
I was.
comment. What Toto Wolff said last year before Silverstone. Ferrari is just two DNF behind Red Bull. If and at some point of time in the season that is bound to happen. So that's
Yeah,
where
that
Ferrari will have to be conservative.
yeah that's what I was actually going to say, that if they are able to fix these close points, these minor issues, then it could be a closer race. And at that point of time, I also feel that it would mean that Sainz has to perform at his best, because if Perez is there, if
Absolutely.
Verstappen is there, if both of them are going at each other, and Leclerc, we have seen him do well. We have seen him perform. He will be there or thereabout with Max. In fact, one thing that I have noticed across all the three races, and I think it will happen going forward as well, that Max and Charles have been pretty close. There have been some wheel to wheel fights, but it has not been dirty at all. I mean, both of the
Yeah.
drivers have been quite restrained. There were comments about Max specifically last year with Hamilton, that he does not play fair, or there were allegations from a lot of Hamilton fans. But this time around, between both Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen, it has been even closer actually in certain parts, and
Absolutely.
yet both of them have been quite restrained. It has been pretty good driving actually from both of them. Yes, so in this case, like, we saw there was graining in Red Bull's tires, and that's why the pace was up. But otherwise, in most of the races, when they have been closer, or let's say 1 or 2 seconds behind, the race has been quite good. And I'm hoping for the same. So if that happens, if Perez manages to keep his tires good, and if he does well, then Sainz will have to come up for Ferrari to kind of challenge for that championship position. Although now they are quite ahead, I would say, for
Absolutely.
that. So yeah, before we finish, just how impressed are you with Charles Leclerc over the last three races? There was promise. Ferrari offered him a long-term contract with something that even Michael Schumacher didn't receive, the term of contract that Charles has, and it seems to be paying off. He seems to be doing quite well for them. Do you think that he can kind of keep this up, challenge Max throughout the season? What do you feel about how he drove, especially this race where it was kind of a grand slam? He led from the first to the last lap, each lap, and it was quite an easy win for him at the end.
I think he has done fairly well, at least in the initial part of the season, not just Australian Grand Prix, but all the races. Why I'm saying that more, because Ferrari still has the issue of proposing. And even after that, he has been fairly consistent in terms of the lap timings and in terms of carrying out the same pace throughout the 50, 60 odd laps. So that's why I'm quite impressive. It's having quite impressive performance from Leclerc. It's just that Ferrari needs to sort out that issue, the proposing issue, because at some point of time that is going to create some disturbances, or might create some issues in terms of uh, being involved in a crash or those kind of things. So that is an important thing. But when we talk about competition for Verstappen, I think the more important part would be if Sainz is able to close down on Leclerc, and if Ferrari is running one or two. because from the dynamics of Red Bull team, Perez already understands that he's a second driver. We saw that clearly in the first lap of the Australian Grand Prix. It would not have been Perez, some other driver would have been taken the right corner, but he stuck behind Verstappen to secure the second place for him, because of which Hamilton, went ahead of Perez. But I'm not sure that is going to happen the same when, say, Leclerc or Sainz are competing. So it's not that just Leclerc will just be fighting Verstappen. I think at some point of time he will be also fighting with his teammate, and it will be very interesting to see, because we discussed that with Russell and Hamilton and Ocon and Alonso as well. When Leclerc is faster than Sainz, is absolutely fine for the team orders to come, and if Sainz is still ahead, he'll have to let Leclerc go ahead. But if Leclerc is ahead and Sainz is doing faster laps, then what will be the reaction and how the team will do? That will be important aspect to see how Leclerc handle those situations.
Yeah, I think while on one hand Ferrari would love to have both their cars quite reliable and competitive, that is going to be a headache, because Carlos Sainz is quite a brilliant driver in his own rights. And
absolutely,
I don't want to underplay how good Perez is, but at this point of time, with the experience that Perez has and the age at which he is, he would obviously love to win a championship. I'm not saying he won't, but he knows that Max is kind of the primary driver at Red Bull, and he knew that when he was signing for them.
absolutely.
And he has been nothing but really, really professional about it. So that's what Checo has been, and it's been great. Ferrari has done well. Let's see how it turns out in Imola, where we'll have our the first sprint race as well of this season. So that will be quite interesting. So we'll see you all there. I'll
one last point I'll make to
sure.
Before we move ahead. So one thing which we saw was from the tire compounds point of view from Pirelli. I think that is one place where it was not the right decision from Pirelli, because when you have not just one but 2-3 drivers who are able to finish the entire race with just your hard compound, I don't think we have the right tires for this season. They still should have gone with 3 C4 C5, not the C2. That is something which I think Pirelli will have to watch out going ahead, because similar incidents happened last year when in Azerbaijan, where not one but 2 drivers actually crashed because of the tire failure, and it was Pirelli did not take all that blame. But yeah, that is something we shall have to watch out going ahead.
Yeah, I think tire compounds are going to play an important role, especially once we get into Europe, where there will be rains. The weather may not be that great. We'll have to see what kind of tire compounds they are using. So saying that, I would request that's it from our side this time around. Request everyone to kindly like, share, subscribe our content. Please write back to us on how we can improve things, and what are all other things that you would like to hear from us, see us discuss, and let's just take it from there. Thank you, everyone. Great pleasure. Looking forward to Imola. Thank you.
Thanks.